So do you take your culture for granted? What I mean by that is the messages you've received from birth, the way you live your life, lots of decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis, aims that you have in life, assumptions that you have about yourself and the world. Have you ever stopped to think about where that actually comes from? So, I mean, generally, we're so involved in what we do, what we get up to, just on a day-to-day, in terms of, oh yeah, this is what I get up and do. Oh yeah, this is how I get up and live my life, plan my life, and whatever. This is just the way it is. This is just what I do, and we think that's the way it is. That's the way it should be. It's like, why would you do anything different than think in this way, or plan life like this, or live life like this? Well, so it comes back to the question, and when we're talking about culture, you know, being in Liverpool and us being the recipient of an award in 2008 as a city, as capital of culture, I think, to be honest, as swayed or changed in our minds at least, and it's probably true on a wider scale. So it's changed what we think culture means. So culture isn't the, oh, we're singing, we're dancing, you know, we're having a good time, and we've got all this stuff that we're good at, and you know, all these achievements and all that. It can be that. That's kind of part, but that's part of a bigger picture. So a culture, if we think about it in scientific terms, the culture in which a certain substance is introduced into, the culture is the set of conditions which react with and influence how the substance behaves. Okay, so that's what culture is. So if you put that on the biggest scale, it's like, okay, as humans, we're born into a set of conditions, and they're very, very specific. They're very, very specific to that place and time. Conditions are always different. So that means how we live, what we do, when it even coming down to the smallest of details, day-to-day stuff, things we take for granted about, oh, this is the way life is and this is the way what we should do. It all traces back to cultural conditioning, but we don't give that credit really. So then you might go, okay, well why would you question it anyway? So let's, like, so what? You know, this is the human story. We've come so far. This is the way the world is. Kind of get on with it. Like, I'm pretty happy with where we are. So what's the point? You know, I'm happy living my life. It's like, okay, fair enough. What questioning culture ultimately is actually trying to see. It's trying to find the truest possible expression of ourselves, because in questioning the culture, questioning the conditions, you're trying to see if there's anything that's more constant underneath the fluctuations of conditions. So conditions change, culture changes, the messages, the axioms, the morals, the aims in life change. it hasn't always been this way. It's changing on a day-to-day basis, really. So what we then have to do, if we want to question culture, if we want to give credibility to the notion that is there anything more constant about a human experience, and can that inform how we live our lives, what we do to make it more meaningful? Because that's what everyone is after. Okay, sweeping statements and all, but yeah. Okay, yeah, so the sweeping statement, everybody's after meaning. Meaning gives us purpose, meaning gives us reasons to live. So we find meaning in whatever we find it. Family, career, achievements, self actualization, whatever, really. So, okay, so let's take for granted that we all want a meaningful, purposeful life. So to do that then, and to really find something that's more constant, something that's more deeper about what a human is, what the experience of being human is, we need to survey the culture. So what that means is because culture at any one time is the amalgamation of all of the different ideas that have come to pass over millennia, all kind of amalgamating into that set of conditions at that time, then we need to study history. We need to survey culture, and we need to assess the thousands of years worth of phenomena, exchanges, evolutions in thought, technologies, the contributions all the humans have made, which have all come together to form what the conditions are about what's important, how we should live our lives. And when we do that, when we survey history, when we check to see what it is that's got us to this place, that's where we can see even more that culture, the messages that it provides us about how to go about our day-to-day, how to live our lives, is so changeable. It's so changeable. It's changeable according to the two main variables, which is time and place. So what's the point of knowing that? Again, the point of knowing it is because I get the suspicion, comes out in frustration sometimes, that people think the way it is, the way we're doing things, our culture is the way it is, and that's the way that's the way it is. Why would you want to differ or question what everyone else is kind of doing? For me, it's like, how can you possibly not question it, knowing that it's transient, it's here one minute, it'll be gone the next. And this is why the survey of history also is helpful, because history gives us the huge, sweeping modes of time where things have happened. And so the culture of today is a very, very small, insignificant state of affairs. Things have changed so much, and yes, because what not questioning culture does, it gives you an inability to see that possibly what we might be engaged in might need amending. We might be off track. We might be missing the point. missing the point. See, that's a metaphor, funnily enough, for the biblical term sin. Sin actually means missing the point. It was to do with archery and being off target. That's another story. And this is why obviously people get caught up with the religious dogma and the vocabulary, what it means to sin. It's been moralised, but it's actually an interpretation of how we're off track. So if you look at some of the previous videos and some of the previous content, why sometimes there's a religious flavour or a prodding towards some religious mentality, it's in this manner how religion and spirituality addresses true human purpose. It's an attempt to do that, taking away the dogma and what it's become and all stuff like that. But it's how on track are we? How close are we to the fundamentals of what being a human is in the human experience? So cultural assumptions, I should give some examples really. And funnily enough, ironically, one of the main cultural assumptions that we have about goodness to others, morals, ethics and things like that, they can be traced back to religious figures. You know, they haven't come out of nowhere and they haven't always been there. You look at some of the cultures over the world, some of the time and place, it's not always been like that. Okay, yeah, so moral ethic thinking, goodness to others, fairness and stuff like that. It's an actually a big case to be made for it, which will take a long while, but it's an extension of religious principles without knowing. It's kind of embedded into the culture. Then we've got scientific reasoning, rational thinking. You know, we can trace back to discoveries made by the Greeks back at the time. Three main figures in Greece: Pythagoras, Socrates and Plato. The Socratic revolution just means, Socratic revolution in thought, basically. And Aristotle as well, giving rise to what we call the atomistic view of the world, breaking everything down into pieces, studying it to see how things are made up and get a true reflection of the world, which fast forwards a few centuries into the scientific enlightenment. But again, it's a mode of thinking, it's a mode of being, it's cultural. It's come from discoveries made a long time ago that have propagated, embedded into the consciousness and into the society, and now it's just like an orientation that we don't even question. But these, what we think are constant, they're transitory, they're open to change, they're of their time and place. And you might not think that because it's so embedded, but if we look at time and place in the big sense, we can see that it's a blip. It's a blip. Now, of course, we keep what's valuable, and it's not to say that it disappears and it goes away, all of these things that are now part of our culture, but they do change massively. And yeah, so having a look at that and getting beyond that, there's possibility to see what a more meaningful orientation of human endeavour looks like. And that is why maybe we should not take our culture for granted. Okay, I'll see you again.